Hi, and welcome to the Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast presented by Wolf Precision Incorporated, where we learn about and share long range shooting and custom rifle building. I am your host, Jamie Dotson, and welcome to the show. Hi, and welcome to episode 211 of Wolf Precision's Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Dotson, and welcome back to the show. In this episode, we're going to be talking about our part 4 in our series of the 4 pillars of marksmanship, and this is follow-through. Really important content and just a thought process to go through while you're trying to fire the perfect shot. So without further ado, here we go. Before we get started, I would like to thank TriggerTech. TriggerTech is the maker of fine rifle triggers. They make them for lots of different makes and models of rifles. We like them here because they're safe, easy to install, and easy to adjust. So if you want to upgrade your rifle in your shooting game and you like to do so with the trigger, stop over to triggertech.com. That's triggertech.com today. We'd also like to thank Creedmoor Barrels. Creedmoor is the maker of fine cut rifle barrels. They are a family-owned and operated business. They are some of the best in the world, and we use them here for a lot of our custom rifles when we can get them. They offer a new program called Creedmoor Direct where you can log in and get your barrel in as little as 2 to 3 business days. So if you want the best and you need it now, stop over to CreedmoorBarrels.com. That's CreedmoorBarrels.com today. All right, as promised, we're going to keep going with our 4 pillars of marksmanship. Again, it's been over a year, maybe a year and a half since we posted these particular podcasts, and a lot of people don't go back and re-listen to them. Here at the shooting school, it really came to light that just the thought process sometimes on how we go through the school and we try to build on fundamentals and the processes that people go through. And I thought this was really fitting to try to launch, especially now that we're getting close to hunting season or it's getting into full swing, just getting our minds back wrapped around the art of marksmanship. And follow through really is a key part of this. And I think the concept of how we approach it and maybe even how you think about it will change a little bit after this podcast. So we hope you enjoy it. Without further ado, here we go. All right, so in the last couple podcasts, we talked about the armory here, and we are open to the public. From open to close, you can come in at any time and check out the armory, look through all the parts and pieces, check out the aces as well as all the different actions, and our stock wall is slowly growing to the point now to where you can come in and check out a lot of the different common stocks that you're going to see. So I get a chance to do all that. We're looking forward to having you into the shop. But the long-range shooting portion, and we talked about the 4 pillars of the fundamentals of marksmanship. So if you go back through the 4 pillars of marksmanship, and if you want and you're new to the podcast, and this is the first time you've heard this, go back and listen to part 1, 2, and 3 before you get to this one, because each one is really important on their own. That, you know, these are the core fundamentals that have to be the foundations that you build your marksmanship or your shooting abilities on. And these things have to be set like any foundation. You have to be deep and you have to be on solid bedrock. But this is the 4th and final pillar that we're going to talk about. And then we're going to talk about the mental checklist, which is the plate that we set on top that binds all 4 pillars together to really make a solid foundation or a building platform for you to learn the art of long-range shooting. But when you get to this 4th pillar and what we consider follow-through, this is a hard one because it's a lot of people think that follow-through or follow-through as far as how it's taught is an action. It's something that we proactively do to get the shot to go where it's supposed to go. And I think the concept is actually backwards. So bear with me a little bit on this podcast because I'm going to try to go back and try to explain, you know, the art of follow-through and how important it is and really what it is, I think is the key. Once you understand what follow-through is or isn't, then all of a sudden the practical application of it really comes into play. One of the best examples I can give you here as far as watching and training is we get so hyper-focused on what's in front of our eyes that a lot of times, I always say we go brain dead from the neck down, that what's in front of us is what's got our attention, and we really can't focus on what's out there as well as back around the shooter himself in a circle at the same time. That's a hard one. And so that becomes a little bit of an issue. The other part is while we're doing that, when we do shift our focus back to us, the shooter, let's just say we're getting ready to intently take a shot, whether it's a hunting trip, a big game animal, or just a piece of steel, all of a sudden we get this mindset that that follow through is we're going to force the bullet to go somewhere. We're going to make it hit that spot. We're going to tense all up and we're going to make that happen, through energy that we're going to put into the rifle. And one of the things that we watch at the shooting school is when students do this, they sort of tense up, then their follow through falls apart. And you can watch the rifles. It's amazing. Like, I am so blessed and thankful that over the years that I've got a chance to just watch thousands and thousands of students shooting and all the things and nuances that come into play, like just stepping back and watching the student from the side and watching how that recoil comes back and how it flows to the shooter himself, and then sort of how the shooter handles it as it's coming to the rear as well, whether they're tensing up or jerking a little bit, or you can see them sort of resisting the rifle and manhandling it, all these little things that fall into this follow-through category. So I'm going to do my best to try to explain follow-through, at least how I perceive it, and hopefully it will help your shooting and maybe help you understand it a little bit better as to, what it is and what you're supposed to be doing or not doing. All right, so the 4 pillars of marksmanship, and this one's called follow-through. When people think about follow-through, when they talk about follow-through, they think of it as an action or something that you're proactively doing. They're thinking of it as if it's something that you do. And I think, for me, it's the opposite. Really great follow-through is about what you're not doing. One of the ways I was trying to think about explaining this is, if you think about, like, we go to the ocean every year. We camp down at Aztec Island, which is absolutely awesome. We went to the Outer Banks this last year, and we always took young kids with us. So nieces, nephews, when my daughter's growing up, we just always had kids, piled in and run into the beach. And one of the things we always talked about was rip currents, how to spot them, and God forbid what to do if you ever get into one. So you think about a rip current and what happens. If you react wrongly to a rip current, you drowned. It's just point blank. So you get drawn into a rip current, and the first thing you panic to do is you try to swim back to shore. You try to fight it. When the right thing to do in a rip current, which is totally off of what your reaction is to relax and swim parallel to shore. It's about as effortless as a thing you can do as possible, and it's counterintuitive as to what you think you should do. You're being washed away from shore, so what do you want to do? You want to swim to it as fast as you can because you're panicking. And in doing so, in some sad cases, people drowned. So what your intuition tells you to do, and it's spending a massive amount of energy, it's struggling, it's all these things, when really it's quite the opposite of what you should do. You should relax, roll over on your back if you have to, and just paddle your way out of the rip current, letting it pull you out slightly. You're going to be pulled out, but just swim parallel to shore. And in no time at all, you're out of it and swimming right back to shore, and you might not even break a sweat over the deal, other than it's probably going to scare the daylights out of you. Follow through sort of works the same way, that we think of it as an action or effort or energy spent to make the rifle do something, when actually, in my mind, I think follow through is quite the opposite. Follow through is our intentional act of not doing anything. So when we shoot a rifle, a lot of people, right before they pull the trigger, they intently focus and they sort of jam everything up, like they freeze every muscle, every part, or they push into the rifle like, I'm going to make you shoot that steel. And as soon as you do that, you ruin the shot, or at least you take a good portion of the quality away from it, because you cannot make the rifle do anything. the rifle will shoot perfectly fine if you don't touch it anywhere. Bench rest shooters prove this all the time. Unfortunately, we're not in a scenario where we can shoot like bench rest, and so we have to touch the rifle. But we can't force it. It's like forcing your child to do anything. It doesn't work. It's a battle, right? And it's a battle that usually winds up costing both. So you have to learn how to finesse it and let it do what it wants to do while doing what you want it to do. So we want the rifle to hit the target. We want to hit that animal. We want to ring that piece of steel dead center. So, we have a goal in mind, but we have to be careful in how we approach it because we can accomplish it and let it sort of do what it wants to do at the same time. So here's how it works. When you're getting ready to shoot a rifle, we teach our long-range shooting school prone, and it probably cost us a couple clients now and then because we don't shoot off of benches. The main reason being is I can't teach you follow-through off of a bench. I am 100% convinced over the years that I can teach you faster, albeit a little bit less comfortable, the art of marksmanship prone because you are in a more intimate relationship with the rifle prone. You're more exposed to the recoil and all the nuances of how you're touching it. It's not just free floating around on a bench sliding all over the place or locked into a front rest that doesn't allow the rifle to naturally behave the way it wants to. And so I always say this in class that I can teach you the art of fundamentals of marksmanship prone. And once you learn it, once you get it, you can apply it to any position from there up. So once you learn how to shoot a rifle prone, you can apply that to a bench. You can apply that to the bed of the pickup truck. You can apply that to shooting sticks. You can apply it to barricades. You can apply it to rooftop simulators. It's from there up. But you really do, in my mind, have to learn this prone, and it has to do with follow through. What follow through really is, in my mind, is your ability to, once you're ready to shoot, to maintain the same holds, not increase them, not decrease them, through the shot, letting the rifle naturally come to the rear and do what it wants to do as it's coming to the rear, hitting you and bouncing off of you and falling back forward again. And you have to do this without negatively influencing the shot by making it do something. So it's completely counterproductive at this point to try to make the rifle do anything. You have to now let it naturally recoil into you and let it come through that shot back while the bullet is transitioning out of the barrel without you negatively influencing it, whether you're your cheek weld and cheek pressure pushing left and right, whether you're gripping or my favorite is the Magnum guys that either shake or flinch or they push way up on the rifle with their shoulder, trying to brace for impact because here comes the rifle. So how do you learn follow through? Well, in my mind, the first place that you want to learn follow through is with really low recoiling rifles. So, for example, if you're shooting a 6.5 Creedmoor, a 20 or 21 pound rifle is a good place to be. 16 to 18 minimum to learn this. Or my favorite is to get a trainer in like 223 or 22 Creedmoor or 6 MMs of some kind that are of relatively decent weight, suppressed maybe, just to help. You want the rifle to recoil, but you don't want it to launch. And so what we're trying to do is tame the rifle down just enough so you can get this relationship built on how the rifle's supposed to feel with mild recoil. Then you can apply that to heavy recoiling rifles because you're going to know what to do, and you're also going to know the art of just remaining still and relaxed, letting the rifle come to the rear naturally. And in some cases, like in Magnums, the reason why you can't learn this with Magnums is that also comes with pain. And so you've got the rifle coming back with a fair amount of energy. It's coming back quickly as far as the velocity of the rifle moving to the rear because of all the energy it's putting out. And it thumps on the shooter. And,
after a while, you either get a flinch or you get this mindset that you're going to resist it. You start getting all jammed up and tensed up on the rifle. And that, again, that's where accuracy starts to go away. Now, I will warn you that I don't think 22 long rifles are a great choice for learning this. And this is my personal opinion. The reason being is it doesn't have enough recoil to simulate how the rifle is supposed to recoil or to help you work with follow through. Because again, our goal with the lower recoiling rifles is to allow you to learn the art of follow through without heavy recoil. But we got to have some. If we take it all away, well, then we have nothing to learn. The rifle remains completely stationary and doesn't move at all while we're shooting. So you got to be careful that you don't push the pendulum too far the other way because you don't learn at that point. So this year we switched up to the 22 Creedmoors. For the first 12 years of the long range shooting school, we shot 223s. And I have to admit that the 223s, were some of the more fun rifles we've ever shot. It was amazing to watch shooters, engage steel out to 700 yards like there's no problem at all. And a lot of the mindset was, oh gosh, I'm going to a long range shooting school and I'm shooting 223s. Is this legit or what's going on here? And, going through the 3-day course, I would explain why. And it's about learning the art of follow through and learning the core fundamentals of marksmanship. And the 223s really allowed us to do that easily because they had just a little bump to them. They recoiled like a real rifle should, but then allowed you to get that bang, little bump, falls back forward. Bang, little bump, rifle falls back forward. And you're relaxed. The rifle's not thumping on you. And so after about 200 or 300 times of that, the lights start to go on that, wow, this is how it's supposed to work. And then when you step up to a much bigger rifle, you're relaxed, bang, you pull the trigger back, it coming back and hits you harder, and you just deal with it. It's a natural part of the process and the price you pay for big calibers, and you let it fall back forward. But you know what you're supposed to do, or more importantly, not do. And that is freeze, jam up, or try to force the rifle to do something. I'm going to will the rifle to shoot that, and I'm going to make it so it can't hurt me. Those are not good at all. So we switched to the 22 Creeds last year, which was a lot of fun. We're setting it just over 2,200 rounds, just to give you an update. So we finished a long-range shooting school in November at the beginning part, and we were in Georgia. And everybody there owned a 22 Creedmoor, which was amazing. They all bought one. And some of them had theirs for more than 6 months to a year now. And they all say it's their favorite rifle. I am not kidding you that it is just an absolute hoot to shoot. But we did have a couple, they had their rifles there, and we had one school rifle on the range that was a 22 Creed as well. And the 22 Creedmoors are what the 223 could have been or should have been if it could have had just a little bit more horsepower behind it. So where the 223 class calibers really shine at 1,000 yards. So where the 223s in previous schools would start to struggle a little bit, not that they couldn't hit the steel, they could hit it at 900 and 1,000, and they could break water jugs at 900 and 1,000 all day long. But they're hard to spot because they have such a small amount of energy, because typically speaking, we were shooting 75 grain bullets. And BCs were 4.35 with the 75 grain AMAXs. They were 4.67 with the 75 ELD matches. But because we're still running under 3,000 feet per second, at the 900 and 1,000, the students sometimes would struggle self-spotting because they didn't hit real hard. I mean, you could hear them ring sometimes, but if we had any weather, if we had rain, less than ideal, spotting conditions, all of a sudden they couldn't see their hits on steel as easy. Where the 22 Creeds really shine is they just devastate everything out to 700 yards. But out to 1,000, when you start shooting 900,000, they hit the steel with authority. We've done it many times where we'd have 6.5 Creedmoors on the line right alongside the 22 Creeds. And when they shot, you couldn't tell who just shot, whose bullet hit. I mean, they both hit that hard, which is amazing. But the big advantage of the 22 Creed, of course, is it has a low recoil. So where the 223 should have and could have always shined was, and where they sort of fell short, was they were awesome trainers, but because they didn't have the case capacity to shoot the 80 and 85 and 88 grain bullets at a reasonable speed that would be needed for traditional long-range type shooting, you paid a little bit of a price for it. So you had to stay with that 75 class bullet, and it just didn't at 900,000, just didn't quite hit hard enough. We considered like the 22 BR. We thought about maybe doing a 223 Ackley, but because we do thousands and thousands of rounds a year, fire forming those cases and maintain them just seemed to be too much of a trade-off. 22 250s were always an option. We built fast twist 22 250s years, and they were awesome long-range rifles, but their shoulder design, their very short neck length, made them so that they stretched easy. The cases stretched or required to be trimmed quite often, and they just weren't ideal for the volume of shooting that we do. Enter the 22 Creed, which, by the way, isn't new. If you do some research, you'll see even back 10 and 8 years ago, people were wildcatting the 6.5 Creedmoor to a 22 Creed with great success. So this isn't new. It's not like a new kid on the block just come out a year ago. It's been around for about a decade, or if not more. But man, where it shines is you can run those 75 grainers at 3,400 feet per second is what we were shooting here at the school. And at 1,000, they were amazing. I mean, they wallop the steel. But then where they really shine is when you get up to the 85.5 burgers and the 88 grain ELD matches with BCs that are higher than the 6 Creed. So the 6mm Creed with 108 grain bullet, AMAX, ELD match, whatever, they had a BC of like 5.35. And the 22 Creed with an 88 grain bullet beats it. It's like 5.53 or something. So they'll run them about 3,200 feet per second, give or take, depending on the length of your barrel and what powder. And of course, we HBN coat. But here's an update. And the reason I'm bringing all this up is when we were at the long range shooting school in Georgia, our rifles have over 2,000 rounds on them now. One of them in particular, 2,200. And the last shots of the last day of the class, printed a couple groups downrange that were sub 5, and I swear he shot a three shot because it's for score. So he shot 3 shots on a particular piece of steel, and they were definitely sub 5, may have been sub 3 inches, and that's with 2,200 rounds on the gun in a 22 Creedmoor. So for the guys out there or girls that are thinking, well, I'd love to have one, but I really don't want a barrel burner that at 800 rounds is going to go south. We've had them on the school rifles all year long. All of the rifles are setting over 2,000 rounds and still shooting great. So we'll share with you the secrets. Of course, I think part of it is the HBN coatings and other things that we do. But I will tell you that they are not barrel burners. And for reference, our 6.5 Creeds, because at the shooting school, we run these guns hot. I mean, not hot speed-wise or powder-wise, but when we start shooting drills, the guns really never get a chance to cool down. So it's like prairie dog shooting, bang, 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 bang. The guns are getting super heated and they really never get a huge chance to cool down. So it's harder on the guns than normal wear and tear would be, the school is. And the 6.5 Creedmoors, we would be replacing the barrels at right around 2,000 rounds to 2,200 rounds. That was our round count. And we've been doing that for years. It's nothing new to us. That's right around the round count where we start to get flyers and some unpredictability as far as the accuracy goes, just because of how hard we are on them. And so the fact that the 22 Creeds are setting at the same round count now and still shooting really says a lot. It says a lot about the versatility of the cartridge. It says a lot about, its round count and what it's capable of doing. And the accuracy, the shootability, and the trainability with it was just awesome. So I don't want to turn this into a 22 Creed podcast. We'll save that for another day, but maybe in a podcast or two, I'll talk a little bit more about the hunting versions and how we think that the 22 Creed for women, for guys that don't like heavy recoil, for kids, I don't think you can find a better hunting cartridge. There's some really cool bullets out there that really even out to 500 or 600 yards, and especially for 0 to 3, 0 to 4 for elk and such animals. I think this could really be a game changer as far as a hard-hitting, killing rifle that would just do phenomenal for smaller statured shooters or shooters that would like to go big game hunting, and more than capable of doing it, but without the recoil. And so I think we'll save that for another podcast, and we'll share some pictures and video that we're working on now. So back to the follow-through part. The 22 Creed has just enough recoil that you feel like you're shooting a real rifle. We don't have to weight them down. They don't have to be super heavy, but they've got that bump. And so when we're watching shooters and trying to explain follow through, we're trying to get them just to maintain the hold that they're getting set up to shoot for. So you've got your your natural point of aim. You want the rifle naturally pointing at the target without pushing or pulling it. We've got our firm handshake grip. We've got, 2 to 3 pounds built into the rifle pressure wise. So we're putting the rifle, either pulling it into our shoulder or loading the bipod, 2 to 3 pounds of pressure. And that's to keep the rifle from having different jump lengths. So if you don't have the rifle planted into the shoulder at all, as soon as you pull the trigger, the average rifle will leap into your shoulder before it hits something solid like your shoulder and then start to slow down. And then the next shot, you plant it into your shoulder hard and the rifle doesn't move as much or it moves differently. That creates a lot of problems in itself. So to eliminate that, you should have about 2 to 3 pounds of pressure into the rear of the rifle, whether it's pushing or pulling. But you want to have this consistency. Like, think about your bipod feet. Every time you shoot your bipod feet, if you're shooting off of a particular surface, like consistently here, we shoot out of a building with a wooden floor. So we watch the feet. They're sliding, an inch or two back, and then you push the rifle forward to slide an inch or two back. You're looking for that consistent movement back and forth. If you're getting sporadics where all of a sudden the feet don't move at all, and then all of a sudden they launch back, do this big lunge, that's not a follow-through issue. That's a fundamentals issue with getting ready to shoot the rifle. We're preparing to take the shot. But follow-through, that is an art in itself, and you have to focus on letting the rifle naturally do what it wants to do. Follow-through isn't an action. It's your ability to be an inaction. It's your ability to not do something. It's your ability to let the rifle naturally move to the rear. It really is just you pulling the trigger, watching the target, letting the rifle come back, hit you, fall back forward in its natural position, and you looking straight through your optics without moving anything. Let the rifle naturally come to the rear without forcing it, pushing, pulling, resisting, bracing for impact, all these things that shooters do that really, really, really messes this shot up. So you do all of this work right up to this point, and when you pull the trigger, you screw it up every single time. And again, learn this on a lighter recoiling rifle, and you start to get this pattern. You and this rifle start to get this, rinse and repeat type thing. Bang, you feel it just pushes back, you push it back forward, bang, here it comes again, you push it back forward, bang, nice and easy, it's not painful, it's not hard. And then when you get to the bigger rifles and the bigger calibers, now all of a sudden it's bang, and you let it naturally come back and hit you hard. And it's your job to sit there and accept it. And if you can't, then you have to get a smaller caliber. You will know your limits at this point, because you will know that you're bracing for impact. You will know that you're getting all tensed up because this is getting too painful to handle. And then you will know you need to get a smaller caliber, that you have exceeded your limits to be able to do what is considered proper follow through without the pain and the agony of the heavy recoiling rifle starting to influence your ability to do just that. And so when you're thinking about follow through, when you go to the range, whether it's today, tomorrow, when you start working on this, when that trigger breaks, just stay focused on the target. Maintain, if you're holding a rear bag, let's just say I'm a right-handed shooter, so I'm pinching my rear bag with my left hand. Maintain that grip completely through the follow through. Let the rifle naturally come back. Don't tense, but just maintain all of your hold, your firm handshake grip, your pinching of the rear back. Let the rifle naturally come back as it wants to, hit you, push you actually, and then fall back forward. Then you relax your grip, reach up, work the bolt. At that point you should have already spotted your shot and getting set up to shoot again. But think about follow through as your ability to not negatively influence a shot. Think about follow through as not an action, but your focus on not reacting to the shot. Just let it naturally come back and fall forward. And somebody brought it up in class the other day that I know it sounds a little weird and vain to film yourself while you're shooting, but I will tell you, you will be surprised what you do or what you look like or the things that happen when you shoot. Unfortunately, we don't get to watch ourselves shoot. We watch other people shoot all the time. But if you watch enough people shoot, you'll see all of this weird stuff that happens. It's really causing the shooters all kinds of heartache. But if you filmed yourself, if you sat your camera up to film you shooting, 5 or 6 shots, and then go back and review the video and just watch how you're reacting. Play that video back in slow motion and watch the rifle recoiling back into your shoulder. Is it jumping or launching, or is it just pushing? Are you letting it push naturally? Do you look like you're just being like a slow motion train wreck of the rifle coming back and pushing on you while you're still almost like you're ignoring it? Or do you see yourself like tensing up and resisting it, and right as the gun's going on, you've got a lot of movement going on yourself, trying to deal with the recoil itself or do something? Again, when the riptide's taking you out, your first instinct is to do something because it's not going the way you want to, right? So when the riptide pulls you out, your first instinct is to do something, and that's swim to shore. And when something's coming back hitting you hard, your instinct is to do something about it. When you want to hit something, or you're really intent on hitting something, your instincts are to, well, I'll focus harder, I'll make it happen. But when it comes to follow through, you almost have to be, this is sort of maybe counterintuitive, but it's the art of letting the rifle naturally do what it's want. It's the art of just relaxing and letting the recoil happen that will really set you apart from other shooters out there. So follow through is as much of an inaction as it is an art. It's letting the rifle do what it naturally wants to do, and the bolt will go exactly where it's supposed to go every single time. So I just got done doing some conversations with some customers, and another podcast was brought up about BDC reticles, and this is common brought up here at the shooting school. And I did listen to the podcast that the gentleman referred to, and I just want to chime in here because, and I'm trying not to make this an hour-long podcast, so I'll try to be brief and talk about this for about 10 minutes. But I am going to totally disagree with anyone who says that the BDC reticles are accurate or consistently accurate on a day-to-day, time-to-time basis. The podcast that they're referring to said it had to do with altitude and temperature, and that, it doesn't make that much of a difference at distance, and their reference was 750 yards, so they could be about a minute off. Well, a minute off high or low at 750 yards is technically about 7.5 to 8 inches. But that's 7.5 to 8 inches high or low, so in combination, that's 16 inches. And that's bigger than most kill zones. Now, one of the gentlemen had said that they would reference to shoot a rock at different distances and calibrate at that distance using their BDC reticle. And again, their mindset is that it stops you from having to look at your dope and dial your dope on your gun. And they say that they reference smaller lines in minutes on the bottom. And like I said, I'm not going to mention any names of everybody's entitled to their opinions. I could be just as right or wrong as anybody else. But one of the things that bothers me a little bit about BDC reticles is that they give you this false sense, and that they're making it easier for the shooters, but they're also making you fly sort of blind. And, they say they're skipping one or two steps and they're fast tracking it because, and our goal is we're shooting animals or we're shooting, steel at distance quickly. But if you know your rifle well enough, whether you're shooting miniature mills, and I'm a big fan of mills because I do think they're a little cleaner, and we'll talk about that maybe in some video work we're going to do here soon. But I know my rifle. I know it at 300 yards on 1.1 mils. I can hold it or I can dial it, but I can even do it faster than a BDC because I don't even have to touch my knobs. So one of the big things that they sell this BDC turrets on is that it fast tracks for the quick shots at the big game animals. And I'm like, well, if it's a quick shot at 750 yards, maybe you should pass on the shot if those 1 or 2 seconds is going to cost you that shot, because maybe fundamentally you're not ready yet. But most of your quick shots, at least in most of the hunting I've ever done, has been within 100 to 300 yards, where you're getting stuck in a less than ideal position. You're forced to make a shot quickly because the animal just busted out of the corn or something like that. And in those cases, taking your head out of the optics and looking at your knobs while somebody's ranging and turning it to 300 yards is a hell of a lot slower than just using your reticle, holding 1 mil and pulling the trigger. If you know your rifle well enough and you know your dope for your gun, they're not saving you anything. But here's the thing, is they were saying that it's close enough, and that they're saving the customers all of this wear and tear. They were referencing that all the data cards they would have to go through to get all their different dope at all these different distances, and how they were making it sound like it was a cumbersome, hard experience to do, and it's not. And by the way, I don't tape my dope to the side of my rifle. It's actually hanging on my turret off my scope tube, so I can actually look at it if needed while I'm looking at the target. But what I think the BDC turrets take away is your ability to make adjustments, fine-tune adjustments, to take that 1 minute error out at 700-800 yards, which at that long of a shot, long range shooting or precision shooting at distance takes a little bit more time. So the farther the shot, the more time you should allow yourself to prepare for that shot. And if you don't have that a lot of time, then either sneak closer or pass on the shot until you can get a better position, right? So it's not an expedience thing at all. But I think one of the things is they sell this false hope that they're going to make it easier, that you don't have to learn all this difficult, hard things that are super hard to understand, and only the smartest and brightest, best shooters really understand how to do the things that we're saving you from. So here, don't look behind the curtain, just dial 750 yards on your dial and you'll hit everything you're shooting at. It's been in our experience at the shooting school, and like I said, I've been doing this a long, long time, is that once you get past 600-700 yards, they fall apart really quickly. And you can't adjust for, and by the way, when they were talking about shooting from Texas to another state, there was this big difference in height and altitude and how it really doesn't make that much of a difference. And they're saying it has to do with the altitude that you're at and the temperature. And that as you go up in altitude, the temperature comes down, which sort of negates the problems that are quote unquote hypothesized in correcting for environmental conditions. And that's not true at all. That's not true at all. It's actually the 3 H's. It's heat, height, and humidity that play with long-range shooting. And at distance, these three things will play hell on you for either making the air more dense or less dense or thinner, you would say. And that is where it counts the most. And you have no way of adjusting. And now they're saying that, well, we have a rangefinder now that will tell you and compensate for all of these. And it won't tell you 750 yard BDC. It'll tell you 720. It's correcting the yardage based on, and then it wants you to dial the yardage. It's not dialing minutes or mils. And here's the problem with that. It's not any more difficult to learn it the right way. And if anything, it gives you more tools in your toolbox, if times allow it, to make and fine-tune your shots, where the other way is taking it away. Imagine if your oven, like, for example, I hate to use layman's terms like this, but I like to eat, so I do cook just like everybody else. And imagine if all the people that had ovens out there that said, wow, people are pretty stupid. Maybe rather than giving them the actual temperature we want them the oven set to, for example, like 350 or 425, we'll just dumb it down to where we'll just put on there select cookies, select cake, select bread, select baked potatoes, but they're not letting you actually set the temperature. You just select what you're putting in the oven. Is it any more difficult to select a cookie as it would be to select 425? I don't want the oven to dumb it down because I'm too dumb to understand how to set the oven to 425 degrees, and that's sort of the mentality of it, is like they make it sound like they're saving you all of this effort, and they're making it seem, don't look behind the curtain back there because, gosh, you look back here, you're going to come out a totally different person because this is really confusing stuff. Oh my God. It's no different than a manufacturer who has an oven. Rather than letting you set your oven to a degree that you should set it to, instead they just cover all that up and you just select, like I said, cake, cookie, baked potato, lasagna. It doesn't let you set the actual temperature because we're too stupid to know how to set the degrees in its place. Really. So when you get into these BDC, I'm not saying that they don't have a place to where, 1, 2, 300 yards, they work great, because most guns will stay about a half a minute or half a mil at 200 yards and around 1 mil at 300. Pretty typical for, let's just say, a 6.5 Creedmoor or 308. All of those classes are going to fall within a couple tenths of that. It's at distance where it comes into play, your individual fingerprint of your rifle, the different BCs. And by the way, with these turrets, when you get into this, they don't allow for barrel break-in. And so they're making these turrets with rifles that have less than 20, 30 rounds through them, or, once you shoot it at home and zero it and get your speed. But just for the record here, when the rifles break in, you can pick up 50 to 100 feet per second after about 150, 200 rounds. How many people are recalibrating and sending in their rifle to get new turrets put on after they've broken their barrel in? How many people are taking the time after 150, 200 rounds to re-chronograph the rifle, re-zero it, and then sending in and getting new turrets because they've changed their speed? And so I look at it this way. I think it's a little bit of marketing, and I think it's a little bit of, we're going to make this easy for you. But if anything, it takes away a couple of the tools that are so easy to learn. I mean, these aren't difficult things to learn how to do to get dope for a rifle. And so rather than turning your knob to 750 yards, you dial it up to 3.4 mils. Rather than setting your oven to cookies, it should be in there at 425 degrees. So it's not saving you anything. If anything, it's dumbing the whole thing down to you to where you don't know how to work things behind the scenes. You don't know how to make small adjustments for changing conditions or atmosphere or altitude or heat or humidity. All of these things really do matter. And especially when you start talking long range, you should have the tools and the know-how to make these small adjustments to make that perfect shot. If not, you're leaving yourself vulnerable and pretty much at the mercy in the hands of the people who are going to put this on your rifle, changing lots of ammunition, changing lots of powder, changing lots of bullets. All these little things can make all kinds of issues to have to rework your dope anyway. And so it'd be nice to know how to do it. Literally, it's one adjustment on the fly, new lot of ammunition, whatever. You'll run it out, make some notes, make some small adjustments, print out your chart, and you're off to the races. And you're going to hit everything just the way you would years before. So be careful on this one. I'm not faulting anyone that gets BDC turrets. I'm not saying that I'm right and that everybody else is wrong. It's just been my experience that they have a lot of issues, and that the bottom line is I really don't think they solve any problems. I think they're just sales pitching a way to dumb it down to say, well, here, use this because everything else is too complicated for you. You're not smart enough to understand it or figure it out. So we're just going to put these big buttons on here and you can just push them. So don't fall prey to that. If you want, I'm going to try to do some videos on doping a rifle. And we've talked about this in the past with other podcasts. But doping a rifle is actually very easy to do, and getting good dope for your rifle is priceless. And then learning your rifle. One of the big things is, if you know your rifle well enough out to 300, 400, 500 yards, you really shouldn't even have to look at your click chart. You should know your rifle well enough that you don't even have to turn the knobs. You can do a technique called hold over and hold off. Use your reticle as it's designed to be used for and calibrated in minutes or mils, and you can drill that plate just as fast. So we teach clients how to use the reticle and the way it's supposed to be used. So our standing record was done by a young girl named Amanda, and she start from the standing position. The rifle's, of course, prone. So the word go from stand, she has to jump on the rifle, find the target at 700 yards and shoot it and not touch any knobs. And if it's a hit, we'll give you a time. Now, you're shooting it prone. You're not shooting it offhand, but we're starting the drill in the standing position, not laying on it. So you have to jump on the gun from cold, find it, shoot it, and hit it. It was under 7 seconds from the standing position. That was broke this year. I think hers was like 6.4 or 6.7. The standing record is 5.6 seconds. From the standing position, on the gun, find the target, shoot, bang, cling, there it is. Try doing that with a BDC turret. You got to jump on the gun, look up, turn a turret, back down on the gun, and your 5 seconds is already gone. So really, once you learn how to use your reticle for what it's designed to use for, you make everything else almost completely obsolete, and you've made the efficiency and effectiveness as far as use the shooter at distance crazy more fast. I mean, 5.6 seconds. To me, that's outstanding. I've not seen that record broke for probably 3 years. I mean, and we had it done this year. So you come here, we'll teach you how to do it.
Well, I hope you really enjoyed that. We're going to be diving into another part of the series here as we keep moving forward. But I just want to touch base real quick and thank our last sponsor. MDT is the maker of a lot of great chassis, from the Oryx, which we think is the most unsung hero on the market for a sub $500 chassis, to the new Carbon, which we're super excited to get here and build a couple rifles on as well. They really have taken the lead as becoming a major manufacturer of some of the best chassis on the market today. and it shows with all the new launch of the great products that they're announcing. So if you want to shoot well at distance, especially beyond 700 yards, the rifle has to fit you perfectly. And it's not a one-size-fits-all. Some stocks do not fit people well, and that especially plays true with factory rifles. So one of the things you can do is upgrade your shooting by upgrading a stock that actually fits you well and beyond 700 yards should fit you perfectly. So you can stop over to mdttac.com. That's mdttac.com and look at their fine selection today. So we'll be finishing up this series. We've got 2 more to go over, I think are really just to try to wrap this all back together. We really hope you enjoyed the concepts. If you'd like to join us for our long-range shooting schools, we have a limited number of classes for in-person classes next year, 5 students in a class. They are actually already filling. We only allow 5 students in a class for training purposes. So you're going to come here and get 4 days of training in 3 days, and it's not chaos on a firing line. And of course, I teach every shooting school here in person. Also, if you can't join us and you would like to learn all about what we teach, you can do so through our online long-range shooting school. It's one of the reasons why I filmed it. I'm getting old, and someday I may not be able to teach this anymore. And I wanted to leave something behind, maybe give something back, and have the content there for people that would like even just have been through our school before and just needs a refresher. So you can actually enjoy all the content that we talk about here in our in-person class and do it from the convenience and comfort of your own home. You can learn more about that at wolfprecision.net. And we are registered through Patreon, and then you can log in and enjoy all the videos. We also have our reloading classes we'll be kicking off and trying to finish that up sometime November, December. And then we'll be getting into some advanced gunsmithing classes as well. So we're looking forward to all the great content. Our last shooting schools are finished up here, and it's time to get to work on everything else that we do here at Wolf Precision. We just announced some new products. We just released our Wolf Precision barrel vise. It's a pretty neat design, about 50% beefier than most of the barrel vices that you'll find on the market today. It is designed to help take your barrel off of your receiver, and it is a 1-250 design. So it's for our rifles, but it could be used for others if they're a 1-250 shank diameter for your barrel. And we always recommend a longer shank length, a minimum of 1.5 inches. One of the reasons why we launched this particular barrel vise is because in the very near future, we will be releasing the Ace as a standalone independent item that can be attached and taken on and off the barrel by the consumer. We are working on all of those products in the background now, and that started with the actual barrel vise that we just released. Then that will follow up with the chamber and chamber wrench, which we're working on the consumer version of that as we speak and testing. And then hopefully in 2025, the customers will actually be able to buy the core components and not only build their whole rifle from scratch, but actually change calibers off of the barrels and re-barrel them themselves. So one of the big problems with modern day gunsmithing is the reamer's not in the barrel until the customer places the order. Where now we've made the chamber, or what we call the Ace chamber system, that is actually a component that's on a shelf. So we don't need to wait for the order to pull the barrels and cut the chamber specific into the barrel. We already have our barrels throated, and we can pull the barrel, we can pull the Ace, we can pull the receiver, we can send these pieces off, we can send replacement barrels, we can send replacement Aces, and like anything that we build here, of course, everything is warranted for life. So we stand behind our product, we try to make sure that we're building the best that we can, and customer service means a lot to us here as well. So keep an eye out. That stuff is coming. You'll be able to see some of the videos on the barrel vise coming out on YouTube as well if you'd like to get some more information on it. Followed up by the chamber wrench, and then eventually in 2025 turning all the keys over to the customer, which we're super excited about. So if you want to learn more about us here, you can stop over to wolfprecision.net. And of course, if you have any questions or anything, please email us. If you enjoyed the podcast and like to share it, it helps us a lot with our ratings. And if you'd like to leave us a nice comment down below, that helps the same. And then of course, if you need anything from us here, we are an email or phone call away. We do build custom rifles complete. We build what we consider a 90% build kit, which we allow the customer to put in the trigger themselves to save them some money. And here in the near future, we'll be able to buy the core components and just finish the rifle yourself. So what is our front porch, and what we do is we are experts at fitting the machined parts together. So think about the Ace and the barrel and the chamber. The Ace is the key to having a great shooting rifle because it is the interaction between the actual barrel and the receiver itself, allowing for perfect alignment of both to each other. This plays out in accuracy, and it also is a reusable part that the customer can actually take off the barrel in 2025 and put on another barrel if they shoot it out. So not only do you buy a chamber for less than what a traditional gunsmith can chamber it for, but it's actually reusable. and you can do it yourself. Looking forward to all the great classes we'll be teaching on this in 2025. So thank you, everybody, for taking the time to join us. We'll be releasing our next one here shortly, continuing on our series, and then wrapping this one up. My name is Jamie Dotson. I'm your host, and you are listening to Wolf Precision's Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building Podcast.